Elvis, and so that is going on. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody in a second after the introduction. So today's webinar is about mobile field data collection using Esri apps, specifically the collector for ArcGIS and Survey 123. So the presentation should be good. It's Dr. Elvis Takow. He's a solutions engineer in the natural resources sector of Esri out of San Antonio, Texas, and lots of experience in this. And so today we're trying to get you all to walk away with some idea of how to integrate these two softwares with each other to produce a product in your daily workflow, possibly public meetings, field collection, things like that. So Elvis, we really appreciate you being with us today. And I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody and let Dr. Takow take over. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I do appreciate it and appreciate the opportunity to talk to so many people. I'm a little nervous, actually. There are a lot of folks out there. But hopefully at the end of today's presentation, you can come away from this being able to get a mobile solution up and running. So today, what I'd like to actually cover is, so I've got a brief agenda here. I'm going to start off with some examples of our mobile sort of vision here at Esri. Then I'm going to give you an overview of what we consider when we talk about mobility as far as Esri's mobile applications are concerned. And then I'm going to go straight into a brief presentation on how you can quickly configure Collector and Survey 123. And then hopefully we have enough time left for some questions. So without any other things we have to go over, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So, excuse me there. So I'm going to start with a couple of examples, actually, of how folks are currently using some of the mobile applications that Esri has to offer, and there are a number of ways. One of the interesting workflows we see is from the Forest Service, which they use Survey 123 at a lot of their parks for interviewing people who visit these parks. And what they're interested in doing in a lot of cases is Survey 123 is a form-based, it's a form-based application that allows them to collect information. So for example, as visitors come in to visit the parks, they're gathering information about those visitors, their interests, what they're there for, and they use that information to better serve future visitors. Another example is, unfortunately, with the recent wildfires in California, that caused tremendous devastation, and thus the sort of responding agency for this fire was the CAL FIRE in California, which was responsible for basically doing a lot of daily briefings and dealing with some of the fire responsibilities as far as the disaster was concerned. And so if you look at this slide in sort of in the center there, you see a big group all huddled around, and they're actually using a paper map, a pretty big paper map, to give a daily briefing, which was part of their normal process because of the number of people that had to see the information. But in addition to these paper maps, they also use some of the applications like Collector, which was used basically by this team for damage assessment. And so they would go out using Collector and assess every structure that had been physically damaged by the fires. And in many cases, they would drop a point at those locations and actually even take a picture in some cases and fill out, a location-based form via Collector. That form was ultimately used as a damage report and was given to FEMA. And then they could also take the feature services that are created from the Collector form and embed that into a dashboard, which you can see here in one of the photos, a dashboard showing where damage has occurred and the nature of that damage. So another example that we commonly see, and this is very common in the space that I work in is using a number of apps together. And so this slide here shows an example where in the oil and gas space, we have one of our midstream petroleum customers using a combination of workforce, collector, navigator, and operations dashboard, which are some of the applications within our mobile suite. So the picture to my far left there is an example of an inspector that needs to gain access to a well pad site. But the reality is that a lot of these well pad sites are not accessible through the regular road network. Such is the case that they have to basically configure or put together what we call custom roads. And one of the neat things with some of our applications is as you create these custom roads, you can actually embed those into a regular road network, and then you can actually route to these custom roads. So making things a little bit more efficient for these guys in terms of routing to areas that are not typically part of the regular routing network. And then the picture in the middle is an example of, if you're familiar with the oil and gas space, it's a pigging operation, which is carried out using collector to collect points along a pipeline. And then as these points are collected, that information is sent out to a dashboard, and it can be used to do any sort of year-end assessment as far as the pipeline operation is concerned. And then finally, we have cases where we have individuals using Survey 123 in the field to do simple things like a valve inspection. So previously, they may be using a paper form to collect information about a particular valve out in the field. That information is written down somewhere and then eventually finds its way into some sort of database. But if you're using Survey 123, it's already in a digital format, and you can push that information into a database and easily start to consume that. So those are just a few examples of how individuals are currently using some of our mobile applications. And as we go through those examples, one of the things I want to bring to your attention is some of the other field workflows that we have seen as a company in terms of what our customers are doing. So this is not an exhaustive list, but this represents some of what we've seen from our customers. And with the help of these customers, what Esri has actually been able to do is develop a number of templates that facilitate future people who are using our applications. So we've created templates off some of these workflows, and you can use these templates to actually build a feature service or a data model that can be used in Collector, Survey 123, and so forth. So, as I think back to the list I just showed you a second ago, that list of workflows really comes down to two different types of workflows. We have essentially data collection projects. So projects where you're doing something like asset inventory, or you're collecting ground control points for maybe a UAV flight, or even just a simple field survey or a damage assessment. These are all data collection projects that make up the bulk of the field workflows that we often see. But we also have a second category of workflows, which generally center around maintenance and inspection. Examples include ground truthing of assets like maybe telephone poles or fire hydrants. And in many cases, you're actually trying to validate information that may already be in some sort of database or a GIS system. Examples include using Survey 123, and in the case of petroleum, to do some sort of regulatory compliance to meet up with compliance regulations. Other examples include simple things like just being able to take a map out into the field so that you may be able to mark it up and bring the information back into the office so that it can be used by people in the office. Those are simple workflows that we see, and they're generally broken down into those two categories or two buckets. That being said, what is sort of Esri's mobile strategy from a general perspective? You know, I personally think it's pretty straightforward, and that may be because I work here and I do this every day. But I think it's straightforward because our main purpose is how do we take the capabilities of GIS, web GIS, and actually try to extend those capabilities into the field. So we're giving field workers or field managers, whoever it may be, sort of a seamless two-way access of authoritative information. So, so as we've previously discussed, these apps are really designed to do a number of different things, right? And the main goal is to sort of foster that constant communication and understanding back and forth between people in the office and the people doing the work in the field. So when I think of field operations, I think of a life cycle that's sort of cyclical, and this is what this diagram you're looking at actually represents. Sort of the cyclical life cycle of field operations when it comes to work out in the field, right? And that life cycle generally starts with a planning phase, a phase where you go through some sort of coordination and you're actually coordinating the work that's taking place in the field. And in many cases, there's a phase of navigation, because there are a lot of times that these field workers, they may be seasonal or contract based, and they don't necessarily know where all the assets are in the field. And so they, in many cases, they have to navigate to a particular location. But once they get there, they actually have to do the field work, which is that list we showed. And that may consist of, you know, doing some sort of exploration, right? It may consist of actually collecting data and information out in the field, but it may also just be simple inspections. And at the end of the day, you're constantly monitoring what's going on, and then finally taking that information and trying to assimilate it so that you can make some sort of inferences, understand and communicate that information back to the people in the office. Now, it's not imperative that all of these sort of steps take place, but this is the general workflow that we see. So I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail and help you understand what that means in the context of the various applications that we offer from a mobile perspective. So if we were to start off with the planning is really just about data management. And it's typically designed for the role of a GIS analyst who may be using something like ArcGIS Pro, and dare I say it, ArcMap, but we're hoping ArcGIS Pro to create something like a data model, or maybe even they're the administrator who's creating a workforce project that is going to be used to delegate work out to various people in the fields. So it's not just about a field worker using a mobile application to do a mobile workflow, but it's about bringing everyone together and carefully planning for a successful deployment and management of that mobile workflow. So hopefully that makes sense. And we have a number of applications like ArcGIS Pro and Workforce that can get you started with that planning phase. And then the next step is that coordination, right? So when we talk about coordinating, it's, you know, from a back office perspective, this is the operations manager or a dispatcher who's creating or prioritizing or assigning work to various people. But then from a mobile worker's perspective, it's about receiving and actually acknowledging that work, but also communicating with others who are out in the field. And then we move on to navigation. And this particular step doesn't necessarily exist in every circumstance, but it generally leads to efficiently getting people to the locations that they have to do work. So if you're like me, you're probably thinking, so what's so special about Navigator? What's so special about Esri's navigation app? Why not use something like Google, right? That's a valid question. It's a valid thought. Well, I think what's special about Navigator is that it works in disconnected situations. So there are many situations where we're working in areas where we don't have connectivity and you still have to get things done. So Navigator works in those situations. And then you also have those unique situations where you need to route to your assets. You need to be able to see your assets on the map, right? Or you need to route to a location that's not accessible through the regular routing networks. And using Navigator or using ArcGIS Pro in combination with Navigator, you can actually create your own custom road network, which can be really crucial in some industries like the oil and gas industry. And then we've got the field work, because at the end of the day, the work's got to get done. So whether it's just simply viewing maps or marking up maps or actually doing an inspection or collecting data in the field, using drone to map paired with collector and to either ground truth so that you don't have to bring in a survey crew to do that. We've got a number of different applications that allow you to do that. And then as this work is being carried out, the ability to monitor what's going on in a semi-real-time basis is essential when trying to meet certain KPIs. Thus being able to create a dashboard which will show you the data that you're collecting is another way of leading to some sort of level of efficiency. So with that being said, that's sort of the life cycle of the Esri applications or the mobile workflows as pertains to how we've envisioned mobility here at Esri. So I'm going to move directly into a demonstration because I think that's why most of you are online. You want to be, I hope that you can leave with the ability to go back to your own office and start to create some of these mobile solutions. So bear with me for a second here while I switch over to another screen and give you a sense of how you can start to use Collector and Survey 123 to carry out your mobile workflows. So what I'm going to be doing over the next few minutes is I'm going to log into my organizational account, my portal. So for those who are familiar, I'm a named user. I belong to an organization, and I have access to all the content that my organization has given me access to, or that has been created by a GIS analyst, or I may be the GIS analyst myself. So I've got all this content here, and I want to start by creating a simple collector map that can be used for maybe some response and recovery efforts, which are really a crucial part of emergency management. So if you take an example such as the case with the recent floods in Houston, or maybe the floods in Puerto Rico, emergency management is a big deal. So deploying solutions in the field in a somewhat timely and efficient manner is an essential part of it. So let's quickly go through that process and just sort of show you how that can be done. Okay. So I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to basically use a feature layer. And remember, I showed you a number of different workflows that Esri has seen a lot of their customers utilize. And from those workflows, we've been able to create a number of different templates. So in this case, the scenario is there's been a disaster and we're going to create a debris report using Collector. So I'm going to go ahead and create that report here. And I'm using a template at this stage, right? So we're going to go next. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to zoom into my area of interest. So I'm in San Antonio. And I'm going to try to focus in on that area here. See if we can, zoom into where so there we go. So that's basically what I'm trying to do here is I'm basically setting my extent, right? And then I'm going to give this, let's just call that debris report, Texas, and I can add some additional tags here just so that I can search for this later. And I'm going to leave the default sort of summary in there, and I'm going to save it in that particular folder called demonstrations. And I'm going to go ahead and click that, and what's happening is it's basically creating a feature layer on the back end. So based off of a template that has already been created for us, I can always go in and edit that template, add additional fields, and I can show you how that's going to be done. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that template, and it zooms to my extent almost immediately. And if I were to expand the legend here, you can see what is currently in this feature layer. So this is the type of information that I'm going to be collecting out in the field. So just so you can see what I'm collecting out in the field, I'm going to set a refresh interval here so that my map sort of updates itself. And then what I'd like to do, just for visual purposes, is go ahead and change that base map so that it looks a little bit better. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and save this. So we're going to call that a debris report. Oops, if I could spell. Report map. We're going to give it a tag. Okay, there we go. And we don't need a description. We're going to save it in the same location, and I'm going to go ahead and save that. So essentially what I've done is I've taken a template, I've used it to create this web map, which is going to be consumed in Collector, and then I'm ultimately going to go in here and I'm going to share this map with my organization. But the individual who's going to be using the map happens to belong to a particular group called POCs. And so I'm going to share the map exclusively with that particular group. And so that should be done. And so the next step is, you know what? Let's go ahead and collect some data. So now that this map has been created, I'm going to leave the map on the screen. I'm going to move over to my mobile phone, and let's see if we can do a new share here. And bear with me for a second, audience, as we try to, there we go. So what I'm essentially trying to do is give you access to what I'm going to be doing here on my phone, which is I'm going to pull up Collector, and did I lose my share? Yes, I did. Okay, so let's see if we can, I'm going to refresh.
I see it, Elvis. It's good.
Okay, you guys can still see it?
Yeah, I see your POCs.
Okay, perfect. Let's refresh that. Yep, there we go. So we called it debris report map, and I had a previous one that I'd created just in case it didn't work. You know how that goes on a live demo. So it's the third one on the list, which should be the map I created a second ago. As soon as I launch that map, it picks up my location right away. I can pan and zoom around, and you can see where you can actually see the blue dot where I am. So I'm actually going to see if I can create a new point, collect at that particular location. We're just going to say other, and I can collect here, add a few details. So again, bear in mind, this is just a a template that I've used, and we're going to use Survey 123 to show you how you can actually edit this template and use it for some other form of collection. Let's put in a simple report ID 01, and let's say assign to Elvis. And we're going to say it's still an evaluation, right? Because we're not quite done. And then I'm going to go ahead and submit that. And let's see, let's quickly see if we can get another point. That might be a little far. Yeah, and we'll submit that one as well. That way we at least have 2 points on the map. So that quickly, I created a simple data model for collector, and I'm able to use collector out in the field, collect a few points very quickly, and I'm up and running. But now I'm going to go back to my web map and give you a sense of what's actually happening in the office. So I'm not sure if we can actually see that the map has already been updated, and you should be able to see the 2 points that we just created. So if I click on that point there, the last one I created, I didn't enter much information, but there it is. If I click on the first point, there's all the information that was collected at that particular location. So I've been able to use collector, create a data model, collect some information out in the field. But what if someone wanted to take this data model and edit it and use it in a inspection form like Survey 123? Well, that's where the integration comes in. So I'm going to go ahead and launch Survey 123 and see if I bring that over. Let's see here if I can share that properly. Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen there. You should be seeing Survey 123. Perfect. And so I'm going to go ahead and sign in so I can gain access to the same feature service I created. So as I do that, I'm going to create a new form. And in essence, what I want to do here is I could start from scratch. Now I'm looking at a completely different application. I could start from scratch and build a brand new survey. But actually what I want to do is I want to use an existing survey. So the feature I created earlier, I think I called it debris, or it had debris in its name. So basically I'm just searching through here for the debris report Texas, which I created earlier, and that's the one there. So I'm going to use that as sort of the underpinning for this new survey that I'm going to create. So in essence, what it's doing is it's loading that feature layer that was previously created specifically for collector. And at the same time, it launches what we call Survey 123 Connect, and it's an XLS form here, which allows me to go in and edit this survey. So just out of the box, this is what the survey looks like. This is all the information I was collecting momentarily using collector. Now we might want to clean this up a little bit, and so what I'm going to do is use my XLS form and essentially edit the survey that you were just looking at on the a second ago. So we're going to do a number of different things. The first thing I'd like to do is I'm going to create 2 new fields so that I can take advantage of the latitude and longitude that's generated by the map. So I'm going to create a field here. It's going to be of type decimal, and I'm going to call it latitude. And we're going to create a second field here, and we're going to call that field longitude, also of type decimal. And so what I'm essentially doing here is using a feature layer that was previously created by collector, and I'm using it now in Survey 123 to actually update my form. So now that I've created both of those, I actually want to take advantage of the ability to pull the location information from this geometry field. So that's what I'm essentially going to do here is use the calculation field here. So I'm going to scroll over here. Perfect. So the calculation field, and I'm going to actually just a quick formula here to pull the data from that field. And I'm going to use the geopoint. So if you bear with me on the other side. Okay. And we're going to use geometry. So we've got a geometry here. Okay, so it's a bit of a lengthy formula, but it's a pretty powerful one that works pretty effectively. So let's just copy that and put that in that field, put that in that. Control copy that and put that in that field there. So my latitude and my longitude, and this should say Y. Okay, so that should be about right. I'm gonna run that. Okay. I think I might be missing a bracket somewhere. Okay. So this is the beauty of doing a live demo. Look through this and just make sure everything looks right. Geopoint, geometry. Yeah, that should be good. So this is why. So let's see if we can pull an existing one that I worked on earlier, just for the sake of the demonstration. So bear with me for a second. Oops, seems like we have a little computer's frozen there. There we go. Okay, so we're just trying to get this to work properly. Don't save that. I'm gonna launch that. Okay, so Okay, so I'm going to make sure I'm sharing the proper screen here. Perfect. Okay, so I think I'm back. So you should be seeing an adjusted form. This is the form that I was trying to get to a second ago, and essentially what I was able to do here was embed the location field from the geometry field, and I was also able to embed the latitudes and longitudes. So I'm going to switch over here and show you what I'm talking about. So we've got location. So here's our latitude. If we scroll over a couple, so I'm basically pulling my latitude and longitude from the geometry field. And then what I've gone ahead and done is I've created a few groups here just to clean up my form a little bit so it looks a little bit better than what was initially brought in from collector. And then I've also added a few more fields. So instead of just selecting the name of an individual or typing it in per the existing form, I've gone in and I've edited it a little bit using the Survey 123 collector app, the Survey 123 Connect application. And so in essence, what you now have is a form that should look something like this. And if you look closely, I've got the form now created with these nice, neat little groups. And I've got a location information group where I can choose my location. I've got a contact details group, and then I've got a report details. And these are the same elements that were brought over from collector. I've just reformatted them a little bit differently so that this form can actually be used by someone out in the field to collect information, in addition to the collector form, which is going to be more map-centric and is not necessarily driven by fields on a form. So if I were to go in here and start to enter my information, I would enter my contact details. I could enter a phone number. Contact details is a required field, so I went ahead and entered that. I could enter a report ID. And I've set this up now where I have type of debris, and if I choose a different type of debris, whether it's vegetation, hazardous waste, or electronics, a new field comes up and you can enter some details, maybe vegetation type. I could enter, see, let's use 665 there and say we've got a ton of vegetation, and we're going to go ahead and enter a date, choose today. We can choose a time. And then finally, our submission status, right? So let's say this is currently under evaluation and it's assigned to, and I've basically put in a pick list, and I can choose a bunch of individuals and then validate that information basically and send that information back. So the idea here is that we were able to use collector to initially create a data model, collect some information out in the field using collector, use that data model to create a survey form, which you can now see on the screen, collect information with that data model. And so that's integrating both types of mobile applications. But at the end of the day, you probably want to see what's going on in the field. So the idea is to take that information and embed it into a dashboard so that your field workers can actually, or the back office individuals can actually see what's going on in the field. So I'm going to switch over here to the dashboard view so you could see what I've got in store. So in essence, I've taken the feature layer from collector, the feature layer from survey 123, did a few more collections. There's the map that you saw me create initially. I basically embedded that into a dashboard. And so now as I collect additional information, so let's just go ahead and add one here. I'm going to collect a new record and just show you how the dashboard is going to be updated sort of on the fly as I collect more information. So I'm going to collect a new record, call it appliance. Let's go ahead and add that. And if you're watching the dashboard, it should have just updated with some additional information. And as I enter the sort of the name, I'm going to call this actual collection ERISA, just so that it becomes really obvious. And I'm going to save that. So this would be my workflow in the field. And as that happens, my dashboard should have just updated there with ERISA. So as I continue to work in the field, if I were to add additional assets, right, that number on the far left should be updating, and as well as the legend. So we're basically taking a number of different applications, whether it's collector, whether it's survey 123, whether it's our dashboard for monitoring. I could have incorporated Navigator into this as well in case someone did not know how to get to one of these locations. But we're integrating all of those applications and trying to put together one seamless mobile workflow. So that's the extent of my demonstration. I hope that at the end of this, you're able to start to explore what we have to offer from a mobile perspective. If you have an ArcGIS Online account, you should be able to simply use one of our existing templates, and then you can build upon it. You can expand it. You can make it a bit more complex or a bit more simple. You can bring that into Collector and start to use it immediately to collect information that's sort of location based. But if you're interested in just using the information in by way of a form, you could bring that into Survey 123 by using an existing feature layer and then making edits on that existing feature layer, republishing it back, and then consuming it on your mobile application. Survey 123 or a collector can be downloaded from our mobile app store. And then finally, you put it all together by consuming that feature layer in the dashboard. So the dashboard is a new item type in ArcGIS Online. You can consume that feature layer just like the dashboard you see on my screen now, playing around with it, adding a number of different widgets like the simple legend or the counter here at the bottom, or the graph at the bottom, which will be updated as that information comes in. I think we have enough time for some questions. I'm not sure how much time we have left, but hopefully enough to field some of your questions if you have any.
Sure. This is Brian King again. Elvis, thank you so much. Great presentation. So one question I do have here is with the new dashboard with AGOL ArcGIS Online, is the dashboard available only through the PC and the desktop, or is it something you could put onto your phone so I can be viewing this as a means to collect data in the field with kind of what you're showing right now on the
Yeah,
screen?
so the dashboard is actually currently only available through a browser, but this browser, I can hit this location on my phone. So I could pull this up on my phone and actually start to see the dashboard update as well. But in terms of an explicit dashboard app, with the new dashboard, that's currently not available. It's browser based.
Okay. And
Yeah.
even if you put it on your mobile device, it's still there's no issues with pulling it up and Can you put a point in, or is it just more of a viewer at that point?
It is strictly a viewer.
Okay.
Even what you're looking at on my screen right now, it's for viewing and monitoring purposes.
Okay.
This wouldn't be where you're actually inputting additional data. This is where you're monitoring data that's being collected
Okay.
in semi real time.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We do have a couple questions here. If anybody does have questions, go ahead and put them into the chat window, and I will read them off. Let's see here. We had a full capacity today. If anybody knows anybody that missed the presentation due to full capacity, we are recording this, and it will be up on our YouTube channel later on that we'll send out to an email. So y'all can pass that along. Um, Real quickly, Elvis, Joshua Young wants to know where we can find more formulas that are specific to Survey 123. If there's a website that you could recommend, or
Absolutely. So there is a website. Let's see if I'm still sharing my screen. We can
you
get
are.
to. So survey123.com, actually. Let's see if I can get to that. So there's the website. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, it gives you access to a number of different features that are very specific to Survey 123. But also, once you log in to Survey 123 Connect, there are a number of different videos and there's a number of different resources available through GeoNet. We basically have a forum where people are contributing to the development of Survey 123, and you can take a look at how people are currently using it, get access to some of the formulas that people are currently using, and even within the Survey 123 Connect XLS form, there are examples of formulas that people are currently using, and you can start to build and explore on those. So the first place I would start is right here, survey123.arcgis.com.
Okay, perfect. Let's see here. Kristen Rochelle would like to know: do we always need to create a template to collect data with the data collector app?
So let me see if I can rephrase that a little bit. I showed you a workflow using an existing template because I was a bit lazy and didn't want to go through the work of creating the data model from scratch. So the answer is you don't always have to start with a template, but you do have to create a data model that works with the web map of collector. Does that make sense?
I think so. And Kirsten, if you have a follow up, you can send it to us, and we'll pass it along to Elvis to answer in an email. We've got about 8 minutes here, 9 minutes. Kevin Milton likes to know what is your experience working with these apps in the enterprise environment portal and in a disconnected environment? I guess offline.
So can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, sure. What is your experience working with these apps in the enterprise environment, in parentheses portal,
Mm-hmm.
and in a disconnected environment?
Okay. It's similar to what I showed moments ago. There's not much difference in terms of how they work. In a disconnected environment, you can take collector offline. You can take Navigator offline. So we have a lot of clients using them in that way. They work the same way as they do in ArcGIS Online. So there are no distinct differences in running collector on-prem or in Portal ArcGIS Enterprise versus running collector in ArcGIS Online.
Perfect. Kenneth Garrett likes to ask the question of when using the repeat function, will the geometry update from the high accuracy antenna?
That is a good question. I'd like to take that offline and understand a little bit more what he's getting at there. Maybe I can follow up on that particular question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kenneth, if you're still online and you want to privately send your email, we'll reach out and get you connected with Dr. Takeow. And okay, one more here is all this functionality available on ArcGIS Enterprise? Okay, I think we kind of touched on that one.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. What kind of accuracy can you expect with the collector application? Can this data be processed well as well? And that one's kind of been talked about before too. So you can definitely use the high end GPS R1 R2
Correct.
and trying to make sure we have him here. Ralph Broad, he just says, "Hey, it's a great presentation." He's got to run, so he's pretty excited. And let's see here, Marianne. Okay, once you have an organizational portal access, are collector, navigator, and survey 123 included with the account?
Navigator is not. Navigator is what we consider a premium application. It's got some premium data that's utilized with it, but the other apps are indeed included with your organizational portal access, including the dashboard. So Survey 123, Collector, Dashboard, Explorer, they're all included. Navigator is a premium application.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, Ashley Hayes has a good question here. My maintenance folks are always asking for reports. What are some good ways to generate custom reports from these apps?
Okay, that is a good question. I think you know I would actually follow that up with the nature of the reports, because I think we use the term fairly loosely, and I can understand why. If your maintenance people just want an overview of what's going on, the dashboard is a really good way to convey that information to them. So that's something that I would look to. Another application that I didn't touch on here, that's more on the analytical side, would be providing reports through charts and graphs, and that can be done in our desktop application, ArcGIS Pro, but it can also be done in one of our other applications called Insights, which allows you to create basically a living report of your data and the analytics that you're doing on that data. But personally, my favorite means of providing reports or feedback to people using some of our applications is through a story map. And I think in the past, this particular forum has had some presentations on story maps. So story maps are a nice way to actually report information back to those people. So it really depends on how much detail they want and what they're actually interested in.
Okay. Well, it looks like we're getting real close and running out of time. We're starting to lose some folks. Great turnout again. If anybody you know of missed the presentation due to a high level of capacity today, we're recording this and it'll be up on the YouTube channel. So, Ollie and Patrick, before everybody goes, I think Ollie would like to maybe mention some upcoming events we have on this coming Thursday. And let's see if I can unmute Ollie for a second. And there we go. Ollie, you are.
Am I unmuted now?
You're unmuted.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad you know what I want to do. So on February 22nd, we're going to be having another webinar. This is going to be presented by Elizabeth Young from the city of Fort Worth, and she's going to be talking about asset management implementation. So you're all welcome to join us on February 27th.
Okay. Patrick, you're up first.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yeah, so we got a couple of MAPI hours coming up. This Thursday, there's going to be one in Austin, in North Austin at Red's Porch. And then same day, same time here in Dallas in the Irving area, we've got one coming up at Bar Louise. So this is an opportunity to network with a lot of your coworkers and other people in the field. We also have a couple more in the works after that in Fort Worth and in Corpus Christi. If there are any cities represented on this call where you're interested in getting one started, please email us and let us know. Or if you're interested in getting involved in Eurista Texas, you can find our website at euristatexas.org and send us an email there and provide us your name, and we'll be in contact with you.
Well, perfect. Well, I think we're pretty much at the end of everything here. So, Elvis, we do appreciate it. We'll have the video up very, very soon, and maybe we can get Simon to talk to you about maybe doing a part 2 since this one was so excellent. So we do appreciate it.
I'd love to and look forward to the opportunity. Thank you for having me. I do appreciate it.
Okay, well, we'll see you all next month, and hopefully see some of you all at the upcoming Mappy Hours.
Thanks, Brian.